Happy today. I am William Brown from IamWilliamBrown.com. This is Disconnect to Connect One Word Conversations. One Word Conversations is a self-discovery, relationship building conversation designed to invite you to look at your language. And so many times we can come up with all the wonderful words that we can think of and still find ourselves in a place of disconnection because words don't just come with definitions, they come with emotions and stories and expectations and a lot of other things. So, the more that you're willing to have a one word conversation, you'll learn more about yourself, the person that you're speaking to, and you'll have an opportunity to build your relationship. One More Conversations is brought to you by IamWilliamBrown.com, a place to help you be yourself and live your life. One way that I spotlight what's available at IamWilliamBrown.com is our U cards. Our U cards are a part of the Beyond the Shell series that it is for our children's book and not just for children's books. The journey to stay you and finding you beyond what protects you. So the cards that I picked to set the intention for this conversation is I am worthy, you are unique, and there is no one newer than you. So this is the moment that I invite you to like, share, add comments, questions, all those things to let me know that you're also a part of this conversation. So the word that we have this morning is advice. So, it kind of reminds me of a saying about opinions, but I think a lot of people have advice and opinions. And so as I do, I invite a guest in so we can have a conversation. Good morning.
Good morning.
This is the moment where I invite my guests to introduce themselves however it feels comfortable to them.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I am Shannon Hernandez. I am a marketing and business growth strategist, and I spend a lot of time giving advice to people.
So that's great. So how does the word advice land for you?
Well, I think I've had to change my relationship with the word over the years many times. But it is it's how I'm paid. So I think it's really important in my world, people pay me to give them advice on how to grow their business. So it feels good. I'm in alignment with the word and with what I'm doing in the world.
Right. I've had, I don't want to say a love-hate relationship, but there have been times where I felt that, all the advice that I gave people was like so wonderful. So, okay, I'm just an advice machine, right? Until I give bad advice, right?
Yeah.
And then it questions everything. It's like, so it's like that balancing act. How I work now within my coaching is that I frame everything like this. It's funny, it's cute, it's something that I understand. So hopefully you'll get it. Is that I tell people that what I'm about to say, consider it seeds. There are some seeds that we eat, right? We just eat right up, right? There's some seeds that we put in our pocket and decide what we're going to do later. We might plant them or do something. We just haven't figured out what to do with them yet. And there's some seeds are for the birds. So, and just, so whatever I say, just look at the seeds. And so sometimes that's how my advice shows up, that it kind of helps me that they get to decide, right?
Yeah.
It's not this, hey, I'm the expert. I know your life, or whatever the case may be. I know your business. This is something from my experience, from my listening, that can contribute to you making a decision.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy. I think over the years, I've learned to ask for permission
Mm,
before I give the advice.
mhm. Right.
And that always is way better, right? Even if
Right.
they're paying me for the advice, it's like, can I
Right.
get their permission first to share it? And especially in the world of social media, I live a lot on Facebook. I have a great group there.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm always asking, like, if they say something, would you mind if I shared something with you? Like getting
Mm.
their permission first, it
Right.
feels so good.
Right. And I say within also in my coaching is the my definition of communications is a brave sender and a prepared and willing receiver.
Mm,
And I think many times, like you were pointing to, that some people just give advice without permission. People aren't
mhm.
ready. People, all the things, and it's just like we're not communicating, right? We're not getting through. And so the more that there is a permission, or it's just kind of an understanding that this is what's happening right now. There is something that you said or that came to my mind that I think would be a benefit in here. Is that
Mhm.
something that you're open to?
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of times. I guess when I was a technology consultant a number of years ago, that they would hire me and pay me very well to like fight with me, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it's just like, dude. I mean, I don't need this, right? It's
Yeah.
like, and so it's like, how is that when it's like they're paying you to give you advice, and then they just want to fight with you throughout the whole process?
Yeah. I've had that when I was doing educational consulting. So I was a teacher for 15 years. I taught 10 years in Charlotte and then 5 years in Spanish Harlem, New York
Mm,
City. And then I left to be a college professor and I did some educational consulting, but it didn't last very long because while they were paying me, it was an uphill battle the whole time, like
right,
exactly what you're saying.
right,
And it could be the best advice, it could be the worst advice, but it didn't matter because they didn't want it anyway. Like
right,
I was
right,
just another person coming in with more things to tell them to try and improve their schools, right? So
right.
um, yeah, it's that's I haven't thought about that in a long time, and I'm so glad I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah, you know what? That's why I came up with the analogy of seeds. I'm not going to fight with you, right?
Hmm.
So you can throw all this to the birds.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
I am fine at the end of the day. Um I just feel like within my listenings, I'm just contributing to within this conversation. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to make a decision, right?
Hmm.
It's funny. It reminded me of I guess my parenting. I have 4 adult children, and
Wow.
I can remember when I could solve problems with cookies, right?
Yeah,
And then I couldn't, right?
yeah.
Right, and it is someone said to me, I can't remember if it was my aunt or something, I can't remember, but it sticks with me of, you have to give them choices without giving them choices, right?
Hmm.
It's like you have to give them advice without giving them advice.
Hmm.
That's how it was showing up with my parent. It's like, okay, if they see this as, dad is now telling me what to do or all that kind of stuff, they're not going to listen to you, right?
Yeah,
It's like, I don't know if that's something within us that it's like we want it, but we don't want it. And
yeah.
so how I guess that's the expertise on giving advice is figuring out a way to give advice without giving advice.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I don't have children of my own, but I'm thinking back to when I was a child and like there was a certain point where you craved and wanted the advice and then there wasn't.
Right.
There just wasn't. It was like
Right.
I no and no matter what my parents said, and I had great parents, they they weren't right anymore. Like the
Right.
advice just wasn't valid, right?
Right.
It's
It's
probably
like you
when I
have
was
no
about
idea, right?
11.
Right. You know, I I don't know why this is coming to mind because I guess the parenting thing, but when my 16-year-old daughter was, not taking any advice from dad, and so in those moments, dad had to have a conversation. And so, my best speech, whatever it was, I'm just kind of getting it down to kind of, because I wanted to help. I wanted to kind
Mhm.
of really, solve all her problems in a half an hour lecture, right?
Yeah.
Or something. And my daughter said to me, she laughs about it now, but I was floored by it actually. Um, sh- she just looked at me and she's like, stop acting like an ass. And I was like, did you just call me an ass? And she was like, no. I said, stop acting like it. And I was like, okay, go to your room.
Yeah.
Lecture over. It's like really, trying to defend the way she was showing up, with her friends and her
Mhm.
life. It was like everything that I said was wrong. Everything that I was making it difficult for her, or being an ass, or
Mhm.
something. And it was just like, whoa, right?
Mhm.
It's like, I think I lost it, right? I think I
Yeah.
have nothing else to say. And I think it has taken a number of years. I mean, she's now 27, and we're great friends. And she lives in Portland, and we talk. And it's like I said, um, she remembers it, and she doesn't remember it.
Mhm.
That mode. But it's everything that I was doing at that time, from work and from parenting, I felt that I could contribute. The advice that I wanted to give, the contribution that I wanted to make was to benefit. It wasn't to benefit me, it was to
Mhm.
benefit them. And sometimes it was well received, and sometimes it wasn't.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting to think about when we're going to give advice
Right.
based on something you just said, because, you know, as I mentioned, I spend a lot of time on Facebook, and there's a lot of stuff that happens on there that I am
Right.
not even getting involved. Like,
Right.
I just keep right
Keep
on
scrolling, keep
scrolling,
scrolling,
like just
right?
go to the next thing and see if I want to even participate in the conversation. Um, but I think that's a maturity skill,
Hmm.
because I used to just want to give my advice to bring up an ulterior motive or a point, or
Right,
uh, get into it with somebody and see what their thoughts were. But it was
right,
exhausting.
right. Oh, I get it. Right.
That is exhausting. So make sure, I think, when we give advice, that it's actually to contribute to the greater good of something, not just to be right, I think
Right.
is the key there.
And I think, going back to my definition of communication, there is a willingness. There has
Mhm.
to, I think, once that permission, because I know there has been sometimes, you know, in conversations with my wife, it's yeah, what do you think really isn't, I need your advice.
Yeah.
I've learned the hard way, right? Right.
Mhm.
That,
Mhm.
give me your thoughts on this. And
Yeah.
but sometimes I have seen that, oh, they want my help. They need my advice,
Mhm.
in this. And that's just not the case. And so how we can balance, like you said, maturity of really figuring out, okay, this is what's needed here.
Mhm.
Or first asking for permission. I like starting that. Hey, are you open? It's like, there is I'm a self-awareness coach.
Mhm.
And so there have been times in my life where if you asked me if I was self-aware, I would say, oh, absolutely. But
Mhm.
and I was like clueless, right?
Yeah.
And so So the question that's coming up for me, it's even when you're asking, hey, if you're open for some advice right now, I don't think there's many people that would just say, no, I'm not open. They'll say
Yeah.
yes when they're not open, right?
Yeah.
Because
Well,
that's what we do, right?
it's what we do because we were taught really not to say no.
Right, right, right.
Really, I mean, it's a thing that I talk about a lot, and in like what I call trust-based marketing,
Mm,
it's getting people's trust and buy-in before you share whatever it is that you're going to share, because
right,
like you said, they need to be willing to receive
right.
it. And the self-awareness thing is interesting because even in my own marriage, we kind of have come on this path to, okay, if someone's just gonna talk, and then my job is listen.
Right,
If
right,
someone's gonna talk, and then I can say, would you like me to give some advice? If the answer is no, I don't. If the answer
right.
is yes, I do. But it's a learned skill that I don't
Absolutely.
think, I mean, I wasn't taught that. You know how we
Right,
learned that? Getting in a lot of arguments.
right, right, right,
When I
right,
thought I was giving great advice, but all my spouse wanted was someone to listen. But I didn't know that. I'm a
right,
fixer, right? So I
right.
wanted to
Oh,
fix it.
gotcha. I walk into many a rooms, looking for stuff to fix, right?
Hmm.
So I have definitely been there. Another thing, it reminds me of another um, thing that I say around communication within my coaching is, um, let go of perfect communication, and consider perfecting communication. And I think that's what you're pointing to.
Hmm.
It's that many times we try to hold out for perfect communication. We're looking for the perfect words, the perfect time, the perfect setting, and when we don't have that, we say nothing. And
Yeah.
so, and when we don't say nothing, we create a space,
Hmm.
and we create stories, right? Right,
Yeah.
about that. And so perfecting communication is, I say what I say, right?
Hmm.
And then I learn because of my relationship. I learn because someone is going to give me feedback. A spouse is going to say, you know what, I really don't need your advice right now, right?
Hmm.
It's
Yeah,
like, oh,
exactly.
all right, right?
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
like, and it's just like, I'm not offended. Now I know. And it's like, if I want your advice, I ask. I remember hearing that as a child, right? You're like,
Yeah.
but it's one of those things that we think that our communication and our contribution is this prescriptive, activity, but it's a learned and mature, and getting smacked around, and
Hmm.
arguing, and estrangements, right?
Yeah.
And all those type of difficult things that's a part of our relationships that really cause us to, um, dare I say, be better humans, right?
Hmm.
Just, but we have to be willing to actually learn as we go.
Yeah. I'm thinking too, like with my parents, we are on such different planets. Like
Hmm.
my parents are, they live in Illinois,
Hmm.
rural. They're super like right wing Republican.
Mhm.
Um, they they are Catholic. I was raised Catholic, but I left that many years ago. Um, you name it, they eat meat. I'm a vegan. Like
Right.
you name it, there is no like common ground anymore. And
Right.
one of the things that we've all just kind of agreed on is, and I'm the only one, I'm like the only one that kind of went the other way from my
Right.
siblings and everyone else. Um, but we've all just kind of agreed on that when we talk, everyone gets to say whatever they want.
Right.
Um, Now, everyone could learn to say things with love a little bit better in my
Right.
family. That's something I've had to learn over the years.
Right.
But that we're not giving each other advice, especially my parents and I, because we are so on opposite of every single thing.
Right.
And it's been interesting. And it's been one of the boundaries that I've had to really put up. I'm 42. So that I can keep a relationship with my parents, because
Right.
they're very opinionated, and they actually go so far as to say, my opinion is the only one that matters, and it's right. And that shit just flies all
Wow.
over me, right?
Yeah.
Like that,
Got
it's
it.
so hard to like stay in that space. But I've learned a lot of things. One, I just don't take it personally. They say that to everyone. Like,
Right. It's
right?
not just for you, right?
Yeah. And two, how much am I willing just to let all of it roll off my back to have a relationship, right?
Right.
As my parents get older and as we've kind of all just went our separate ways. So it's been a great lesson in maturity and learning how to just communicate more with love, or just don't communicate.
Right.
Don't engage in a lot of that stuff that they say. I just don't engage in it. Like,
Right. No, I totally get that, and thank you for sharing that. There's a number of family members that I love from a distance, right? Right, you know,
Yeah.
and just kind of be okay with that. I have a
Yeah.
conversation around labels, and inviting people to live beyond our labels, because I think beyond our labels, that's where we are, right?
Yeah.
And so I can either
Mhm.
say that my dad label, when I was talking to my kids, it wasn't William talking to my kids, it was the dad label. And there were times where, they had enough of dad, right? But
Mhm.
now, because of their adult children, the conversations that we have is not just from dad, it's William. So I
Mhm.
can see that my kids, their life is their life. And
Mhm.
I'm able to not just show up to them as dad, but as William,
Mhm.
and as the husband of their mom, and all of those things that in some cases they didn't have access to when they were growing up, because I was so much in that role, on that label
Mhm.
of dad. And until I really, embrace this conversation of living beyond, um, my relationships, have improved because of that. Because like, I think like you were saying, we have to decide within our boundaries and with our values and our communications, how we're going to be in relationship with people,
Mhm.
or we're just not going to be in a relationship with people. Right? It just,
Yeah.
because that steady fight, no one can sustain that.
Mm-mm.
But I think, but in some cases, some people can. It's like, dude, just let it go, right?
Yeah, it's like the same energy of those people that hired us and then
Right,
argued with everything anyway.
right. It's like they wanted to prove to the people that were there that they were right, and we didn't need this darn consultant to come and tell us what to do.
Well,
Um,
this is interesting, I think, talking about the proving energy
hmm,
in terms of advice. And I've been working on this a lot with my clients, is like, if you enter your marketing messages with proving energy, you got to
hmm,
prove that the program's worth it. You got to prove, that energy is one, it's not sustainable. And
hmm.
I teach joyful marketing, and that certainly isn't joyful,
Wow.
because
Right,
to be able to, you always have to have evidence, right? If you're trying to
right.
prove something.
Hmm.
And so it's interesting to think about when we give advice, can we not get to the proving, needing to prove, right? Like they need to be very separate.
Right.
I've tried to
Absolutely.
remove all the proving energy, which, like I said, my parents, they're always proving that they're right. And that's how
Right.
I grew up. And it's taken years to
Right. Right.
undo that part.
Wow. I have found that for myself with, some of my marketing and some of my communication, most of the times, one, it's exhausting because there's so many extra words, right?
Yes.
It's like you don't just say something, you say something and explain it, then you explain it, and then
Mhm.
you explain it, then you make an assumption, right? And
Yeah.
then you explain the assumption, right? And it's just like, dude, I'm now confused. What,
Yeah.
and it's that energy that really, go back to the card that I picked, of worthiness, right?
Mhm.
There was a part of me that felt like, hey, I'm trying this new thing, or I'm this something that I feel that is a benefit, but I don't know if I have the proof or if I'm worthy enough to have this different conversation. The a large part of my consulting was in technology. So
Mhm.
when I moved into coaching and look, self-awareness coaching, right?
Mhm.
Having conversations around, meditation and mindfulness and, different other things that kind of have you get aware of yourself. Some of my technology friends are like, where the hell you go? Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's like, zeros and ones, man. What are you, but
Yeah.
I saw all of the people within the tech, industry and everything, a lot of people, not all, I'm sorry, that were just so disconnected from themselves
Mhm.
and suffering that,
Yeah.
in their marriage, in their relationships and everything, but they felt that they were good technicians or good professionals and all of that. And so my, advice or my offer was to say, hey, there's another way. But I didn't feel like, that I was worthy. And so I was trying to prove it, right? I was
Yeah.
trying to prove,
Mhm.
hey, I know your language. I know what you're going through. I all this, and it's like, dude, that's,
Yeah.
it's really not helping.
Yeah. Yeah. The tech industry, that's an interesting one. My spouse is in the tech industry
Hmm.
and also has her coaching degree now.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
she's seen exactly what the other side, like what you're talking about.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know. I'm grateful that we chose, like, this was the word,
Hmm.
because I've actually written about 8 things I'm going to write now as,
Oh,
as a
wow. That's
result of
great.
our conversation. Um, and there's something around, this is my thinking face.
Okay.
There's something around advice that's cloaked as something else that we
Hmm.
haven't touched on. I don't know if I have the words for it, but
Yeah. I just
you
felt
know
that.
what
I'm
I
trying to
mean?
figure out. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out what that is. Um, hmm.
It's almost like it could be a facet of proving. Uh, I can give a great example. I talked to
Okay.
my parents on the phone this weekend, and it was so exhausting, William. I was just like, whoa, I need to put a time limit on this.
Right.
Um, but it was like, this is something that my dad says. It just drives me crazy. He was like, well, anyone that has a brain would
Hmm.
know that. And then he goes on to say what he says.
Right.
And it's all his own opinions, right?
Right.
And I say to him, well, I have a brain and I don't believe that.
Right.
Right. So it's almost like he's not aware of it. I would call it an attack almost, right?
Hmm.
Like,
Right.
it's hurtful. It's really hurtful. But he's not self-aware enough to know that's hurtful.
Right. Yeah. I within the conversation of labels, I say that labels defend labels.
Mhm.
And so what it sounds like, I don't know what label is showing up there because it seems like there's a number, right? A
There's
number
a
of them
lot of
showing up,
them.
right? But he is in defense of them, right? And especially if there is a feeling that you should embrace those labels.
Yeah.
And so then there is that. I think the word manipulation is coming up,
Yes.
a lot, and it's kind of there's a there's a number of ways. Um, one of the hardest groupings of labels that I talk about within my talks are the family labels, because we just kind of we give them a pass, actually,
Mm-hmm.
too often. And they cause the most pain because we've given them a pass.
Yeah.
And so it's like, because it's dad, okay, now that behavior that's happening with dad, I'm going to have to like manage and everything a totally different way. Oh,
Yeah.
because it's mom, because it's my daughter, because it's my son, all that other kind of stuff. And I miss really connecting as human beings and really kind of working out how we can relate to each other. And so when labels are busy defending labels, people get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
People are lost. People are missed. And until we get to a place within our relationships or within our communication where the label is not leading, or doesn't stay, right? Because they can come around, they come and go as they please. If they hear it's like, oh, this is a good conversation, I'm going to show up here,
Yeah.
type of thing. But the more that you allow people to have conversations, the more that you can connect and understand, have an understanding, appreciation, a level of gratitude, all the things and love that is possible, instead of all the other things and defense of labels
Mm-hmm.
and that stuff. So um, this is this is something that I really appreciate, by having this conversation around advice. But I think we can talk about this for hours, but we should. I think I want to ask a question. Is there anything that you want to leave everybody with, that they didn't ask, I guess, right?
Yeah.
That you've gotten from this conversation, that it's like now advice will show up totally different because of this.
Yeah. I love this idea of seeds.
Hmm.
I'm actually going to take that and really
Great. Wonderful.
create some art around it. Like, that's my thing, is I want to go draw seeds with birds and in my pocket and eating them.
Right.
But really, I think it's just, give advice that is for the greater good, not to prove anything.
Right. Wow.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt that there. Yeah. Thank you very much. This has been a lovely conversation. I think my next coaching call will be a lot more peaceful, right?
Yes. Yes.
Just throw out some more seeds and just kind of go from there. Thank you very much. This has definitely been an honor.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Bye-bye. Yeah, advice. I know you're probably thinking of all the places that you can give advice, because you know what? If you look around, there's so many things that need our attention, and that because we're aware of it. However, I think the one thing that Shannon said, that, ask for permission, ask if they're open. And the more that you get the permission to provide advice or contribution for the greater good, the better the world is. Thank you very much for being a part of this conversation. I invite you to reach out to me at IamWilliamBrown.com, a place to help you be yourself and live your life. Can sign up for a complimentary coaching session to help. And yeah, so that would be great. Because the world wants you, the world needs you, but the world isn't waiting for you. So go be you. Have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you tomorrow on One Word Conversations.